All right, here we go. We're back to building our form library using Vue and Tailwind. The last time we were here, we integrated the vValidate library with the work that we'd already done before with Vue concurrency. We used yup for validation. And then we started creating an input layout, at least for text fields, that essentially has a label, a place for error messages, some help text that you can have. So sort of just laying out um, the input field, and it looks something like this, for example. So the label goes up here. We can have some help text. Any error messages show up here, and all of that is integrated with yup and vValidate for form submission. So if I just refresh here, and obviously like we played around with some complex forms with arrays and objects in arrays and so forth. So I can submit this and I'm getting the appropriate errors. Great, so for now, what I want to look at is extending the input layout. Currently, it's really focused on text fields. I could pass a type in here, and I guess I could pass in checkbox at least. And then we can also have a version for selects. But I want to abstract it further so we could potentially add other external libraries as well that manipulate forms, for example, ViewForm, ViewForm's multi-select, which is a super useful plugin or super useful. Let me just get the demo here. Super useful select thing, which lets us, do autocomplete searches, multi-selects, async autocompletes, tag-based selections, removing them, and all of this is sort of very nicely managed by the library. So to have a wrapper around this for our own library would be pretty cool. And other things too, for example, Tailwind's headless UI has some elements for Vue, for example, a toggle switch, which is really a checkbox in a sense, and to be able to have that as well and integrate it so that it just works with vValidate, and we can add in form components or extend it easily. So let's play around first. For now, I'm going to get rid of this company, just have, or this array, and just have the fields there already, so we don't have to click this every time. Let's do that. I'm going to do a few cleanup things before I really get started. So let me get rid of the field array. We've demonstrated that it can work. That's great. Or, you know what? I can actually just leave it there for demo purposes and maybe just bring out a couple of these other fields, place them here, and maybe call them something else. So they're no longer companies. It's, I say first name. Oops, I don't want this to be. So I can do something first name. And the help can be your first name, just in case you forgot. Your first name, and also get rid of this. And this can be, yeah, sure. I can continue to be location. Why not? And now, if I refresh, I could add companies, although this isn't very nicely formatted, but I still have these. And currently they don't have any validation, so this will submit as it is. And I think that's fine. The other thing I want to do is I want to rename the components. So when I see random form, random is for like random acts of coding. But when I see random form or random input, I'm expecting like a random input. Maybe it's a date field sometimes, and other times it's something else. So I think having something that's maybe 3 letters is a bit easier. Something like this. So I decided to call it Fab. because whatever, it's fabulous, it's great. Fab input, fab form, fab everything. So let me do that replacement. So whoops, and here's everywhere where I have a reference to random. And let me make that fab anywhere I see it. And I'm just doing this manually instead of an entire search and replace, just so I have a good sense of exactly what's changing. Okay, that's this file. Next. Obviously, those imports and everything won't work until we change the actual components, but that's fine. Let's go to the next file. App was done. Oh, I mean, next is really this. So that's interesting. It thinks it's oh, that's unfortunate. That might not work because it seems like there's these icons libraries that is conflicting with it. There's an icon library named Fab, I think, which is unfortunate. If I just search for Fab here, will I see it? Or if I just get rid of this, search for everything. Nope. One of this is probably it might actually be Fab or font awesome, bold or whatever the case may be. So that's unfortunate, but maybe if I actually end up renaming my files here, that might take care of itself. And if it doesn't, I'll just be sad, I guess. Sadness will prevail. That's interesting, right? Like, how does unplugin deal with this kind of stuff? When this happens, right? When there's a conflict in... it seems like it's taken the Fab button. And the icon no longer comes up, which is what I was hoping would happen. And it seems like I should be able to proceed here. Should be able to get rid of this. Although this file is auto-generated, so I guess let's see if the app still works. And it doesn't because of that component stuff. So let me just spend a few minutes dealing with this mess. This looks fine now. Maybe I just have to restart the server. This is now pointing to the right place. So I'm a bit stumped as to why that wouldn't work. That form, pick it up from here. That button is being used here. And it thinks it's some icon conflation, probably because the FA is for font awesome. That's silly. Let me see if I can fix that, because I do want to use the name Fab. That's actually important. I wasn't expecting to have to fiddle around with this. And I think somewhere down here, hold on. Ugh. Build tools, frameworks, Vite. I think somewhere here they do describe how to auto import. which I set up here, I believe. In the Vite config, here we have icons resolver. Prefix false. So actually might want to just make prefix true, or prefix icon, and that way that conflict doesn't happen. And then I just have to go into my random button, which is I think the only my Fab button, which is the only one I think that is using an icon, the GG spinner. So this should become icon GG spinner. I'm just going to restart the server just in case, and let's check the components file. And now icons GG spinner is here. I don't know why I wouldn't get rid of this one, but maybe I can do that manually and see if that's fine. And now we come down here. This works as expected. So now we're fine. Well, I'm glad I kind of went through that just so it's sort of solidified that I probably should be using a prefix. For the icons, not a big deal, but it works. Okay, so this is just me renaming the files. Let me get that in there. And then this is just a rename as well. And then this is just using fab. And here it's using a prefix. All right, so now I got my fab form and everything else. So I'm happy with that, although this wasn't a card. Now I want to extend this, and now we get to, get to do some work here. So what I want is, let's create a label here. What I want is a checkbox to see if I can play around with something like that. Maybe I can do this, and the type here can be checkbox, and this here can be terms of agreement or something. And this now shows up like this. So the styling here is not what we would want, because it's being picked up by the styling that we really had for the text field. And well, we don't want it to look like this. So here's what I'm thinking. That we abstract away some of the surrounding some of the surrounding divs and everything, and create maybe a fab field instead of, and then fab input can use fab field, and this field area then just becomes a slot, which we can change based on what we want, and we can style it differently and all of that. And so we can control all of that behavior from the calling component. So let me start maybe by doing some of that. I'm not sure if this will turn out the way I want, but let's see. So maybe this field so I want a slot here. Name is default, so it's the default slot. I don't really have to name the default slot, but I might have more slots later. For example, for the label, I should be able to put other HTML in here, and it doesn't just need to be a text value. So I might have a slot here. And then fab field can call, fab input can call fab field. And field can be what gets slotted in here. And then all of this stuff is taken care of by the field. Will this work? Let me just think this through. So name, type, placeholder, right? That makes sense because placeholder isn't really something you have for a checkbox. Label value can go away. It's not being used. I am still using adders. I'm not using props specifically anymore, so I can get rid of that. No computed, no star case. All this stuff is sort of delegated to the Fab field component. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm okay with all of this for now, and we'll see if this becomes cumbersome. So now when I go back here, nothing works. Because something that's being split is not being passed in. So let's just take a look here. I guess they're expecting props and the splitting and the label value to happen here. Yeah, this is interesting. Because I do want to pass in a label. So label does label and help. This and type don't belong. Name does belong. So maybe I could just pass those specific things in. I don't want to pass in. I don't want to vbind all the adders yet. So let me just do this one by one. So label help equals help. And name equals name. I think that's fine for now. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. Okay, so I'm getting two of them because did I leave field in here? Yeah. And so I can get rid of field from here. And I have my fields submitting and everything is still working properly, so I can commit the extraction here. I don't need this anymore here. I don't need adders anymore here. Or this. Okay. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Let's commit. All I did here was just create another field. And fab input is modified, creating the fab field component. Okay. So now I can think about creating maybe a fab checkbox component, which is different from the fab input. Although checkbox is an input, but for our purposes, it's going to be styled fairly differently. So we want to separate those as a result. So let's do that. So let's copy this over, fab checkbox. And then for our purposes here, this will always be checkbox. So type is no longer something we want. Placeholder is not something we want. We still want name, label, and help. And I wonder if this is something that could be abstracted away later, but let's see. I don't want this padding on it. Let me actually start to use it in app view here, so that we can see it being styled. Maybe I can give it a H4W4 type thing. Oops. The routed thing I like. Is that taking on that? Yeah, it is. Okay. I don't know if it'll remain this large. Rounded border gray, is that okay? I think it's fine for what it looks like for now. That stuff might not even be applying. Placeholders not a property. I'm passing it in an ID based on the name, which, like, I don't know if I want to do that. I might do something like this later on where I have a v slot and this gives us some values like and vvalidate does it for its field. It sort of generates this field thing that I can then vbind here or something. Or maybe adders is something that is passed through here, so that the adders are automatically getting binded here, and then the ones I care about are being passed in here, so I no longer have to do this, for example. And I only do the ones that I care about. I don't have to do this because that can be relegated up there. But for now, I'm okay with the duplication because I just want to get the concept working first. So in terms of agreement, the label, I want it to be over here. I don't want it to be up here because the label would look different. Let's see how Vue Formulate handles their layouts again, because that's what we're basing ours off of. And they have this concept of a label and then a label after, which implies that the label comes after the input. And they have something similar for help. So you could choose where the help goes. And the errors are here. Okay, so let me do one thing here. Let me make terms of agreement required. Terms of agreement, I think it's not a string, it's a Boolean. And I wonder if there's, I think yep would have that. I want to say it's required. Again, I can't do that. I wonder if, because Boolean is a type, I wonder if I'm allowed to do that. Seems like I can because it is defined on yep. So, okay, so let's see if that works in terms of showing us the error, and then we can go ahead and style more of it. In this case, it is. And here it doesn't seem to do that. It's not doing what I would have expected. And it's already pre-checked for some reason, which I'm realizing it shouldn't be. So what am I doing? Type is checkbox. I don't want to validate on blur. These are my classes. I do need to give this a value. So let's say value equals true. And now it doesn't check by default, but my submit doesn't work. So if I submit this, my terms of agreement is true here, and terms of agreement was undefined, but I am not getting the check I would have assumed I would have gotten. We're saying, terms of agreement is a required Boolean. So let me just take a look at yep to see how it handles that. Huh. Oh, that's not very instructive. But I guess it's just expecting this to work in the way that we might have expected. Oh, okay. That's my fault here because I put this in the wrong place. Silly me. Okay. So now that works. Terms of requirement agreement is a required field, and sorry, label. Okay, so all that is working. So the errors are still working, which is fantastic. We just need to bring our label here. So I'm thinking there might be a param I can pass, for example, label after. Mark that true. This should be a Boolean. And actually, this would go on fab field. So let me put it here. And if I pass fab field a label after, I would expect it not to show this. And I would want this label to be after here. I don't know if that will work out in the way that I imagine, but let's see. Because these two fields are in line. And I can say, so I want label after Boolean. And I can come down here and say, okay, if label is not equal to false and label after, and I can say and not label after. Maybe this can be extracted somewhere, but for now, that's fine. All right, so now that label is showing up after, but I want it to show up here. I wonder what these folks here do. I would have expected there to be a checkbox here. Maybe it's just box. So they have if you pass in type box, it'll give you a checkbox, and this is how it'll style it. I'm assuming this is based on after, so let's take a look at how they're doing it. Yeah, so there's a label after, and yeah, so they flexed it up as I would want to do in earnest. So they have an input wrapper, and that input wrapper makes this flex, and it makes it come side by side. I want to do something similar, but I'll want to do it like this. So I'll bring these in, and I want there to be a class here, but I want the class to be something like this. Input wrapper classes. Pull them in here. And then here, what I can do is I can pass in what I want these input wrapper classes to be, and maybe create the type of visualization I want here. And so this way, this is why we would want a completely different sort of component handling this. Although in this case, I guess they just have form input for all their form components, and that's fine. That works. You're just passing in a type, and they're handling everything in here. Or have multiple components that are being called from this one. That's fine. I want to abstract it a bit different, so I in my case, if I was using formulate as my prefix, I would be formulate checkbox instead of formulate input. It's almost the same. So now I can say something like, I don't think I need to make it active or bind. Input wrapper, wrapper classes. And then I could say, hey, make it flex, and make it a flex row. which it would by default anyway. And this way I'm getting something like this. And I can say space x4, good old space x4, maybe 2. And I'm getting something like this, which is fantastic because that's, you know, what I would want. And the checkbox there looks nicer. There's a few things that kind of might not work if we stretch how we handle this. So let me think about it a little bit. I want to deal with slots here as well. And here's what I'm thinking. Some, terms of agreements have maybe a link, right? There'll be like a link here. And they'll be long, spanning multiple lines. So let me try and do that on my caller here. Okay, so the name is terms of agreement, but I might want like a label that is like, please carefully read over all the terms of agreement. And I want this to be a link, right? I want this to be a link, and we'll get to that. And accept, or you will be held accountable. Lols. And I'm hoping that's long enough. That is long enough. But it's taken up the full thing. Maybe if I just give my fab form here a width of half, just for our maybe a fourth. It doesn't care. Okay, there we go. Again, I'm having that issue where I haven't, checked out the. So this is fine. I like this. I would want it to be this way. I thought I might have to restyle some things here. But I do like this. Maybe the checkbox could be a bit lower. Based on what I want, but I think that's fine. I might, be able to do something like this, which is like label classes, and then maybe say something like MT PX, which would, or MT2 just for effect here, and then go back in my fab field. And now this is becoming a bit more complicated, but it is, along the lines of what we want here. So here I might say, okay, class equals, so additionally we'll have some classes. Sorry, not in the label, but oh, I don't have to do that because it's not actually on the label. This, for some reason I thought this was the label, but I don't need this. I can just simply go here. So that makes it a bit simpler. MT2, that's not what I want. MT1-ish, also not what I want. PX. That looks like it's, top aligned together. It doesn't have to be, but I'll just leave it like this, and that's cool. But if we did need some classes, so this is how we can sort of extend slowly based on necessity. If I did need to have the label styled a bit differently, I would have done that. Okay, so I'm happy with sort of at least how this looks. So I'm gonna commit this. And again, there might be some abstractions later that we have to modify. That's good. We just added an after. So like a before label, after label, and based on if it's after, it shows up here. And I want to enhance this just a little bit. So there will be some duplication here. And maybe I can extract this into a fab label. Let's do that. Let's do that really quickly. Okay. because the label itself might be something that we would want to have regardless of anything. Like I might just want to use a label somewhere separate from a fab field, and I should be able to do that. So this would go away. We don't care about the VIF at all. We assume that you want it. So we want name, we want label. We don't need help. We don't need label after or input classes. We do want this, right? So it does this magic for us automatically. And then this can then disappear from fab field. So I should be able to do something like this. Fab label. Right, and then same thing here and here. Oops, okay. And then actually this should be for, really shouldn't be name. Am I okay with that? Because like this, this cares about for, right? It doesn't care about the name. So should name be passed in separately because I want label value, or maybe label value actually does belong outside. I don't care. I will just output whatever label you give me. So that I think makes sense. So we do want label value to be up here in our field. And then this actually just becomes slot. Because label value, whatever we put in here, automatically is being passed in. And I no longer need my styles here or here. So the for is being passed in as it should be. And label doesn't need to be passed in anymore because we're just getting a slot. And this super simplifies our label here. We don't really need our message or computed or start case or any of this business. Okay, now this is turned out to be much simpler than I had thought. Okay, and then I think over here we can have a label slot both here and here. Oops. Both here and here. I don't know how that will work with the label value, or if it will, or maybe I can just say span here and only show this, there's a VIF and else, and if the slot of label exists, then I would display it. Otherwise, I display my span here. So let's do something like that. And how do we do view 3 script setup? Slots. Okay, use slots. Okay, let me log the slots and see what comes of it. And well, I guess there's a default slot, so I should be able to do dot default, which means if a label slot is passed in, I should be able to dot label. So VIF slots dot label, show the label slot, and then V else, show that label value. And I should be able to do the same thing here. And again, there is some duplication, which I'm currently okay with. But yeah, that could be abstracted. away. Okay, so everything sort of works as you would expect it to, so nothing is particularly broken as yet. And then I should be able to, for example, make terms of agreement a link by going back to app.view. And then here, instead of passing in a label, I would pass in a template. And I can say, I can name it label. Oops. And if I say hello here, I would expect this to be replaced by hello because I've passed in that, and that doesn't work because failed to resolve component. Do I need to pass in? Well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Slots aren't auto-bound in because I have multiple layers now. I have Fab Checkbox, which is being passed in the slot. That slot isn't here because this is, so I need a way for this component to pass in that slot. I wonder if that would work if I had done something like this. Like, the slots aren't adders, right? So you can't just magically pass them in. I wonder if there's a way to do that. View 3, auto pass in slots. Ugh, I don't want slot. I want to magically just pass my slot in here. Is there a way to v-bind slots? View 3, v-bind slots. I'll have to read everything. Scanning here to see if I find something relevant. Name slots. Yeah, that's what we're using. You could do vslot header, or this vslot can be replaced by the shorthand, which I used. See, the thing is, I mean, I guess I could pass in slots. I wonder if I can v-bind slots into the here, but then I'd have to do it for each component that I create, and maybe that's okay. Maybe that's just a requirement. Slots are super powerful. Okay, I wasn't able to find, maybe search for bind here. But that's not sort of binding the slot itself. Um, pass slots through from parent to child component. That's what I want. Okay, this is like a GitHub. vslot 4, name in slots, name. So this is magically passing in all the slots. Yeah, you know what? Maybe there's no magic. It's just me. No magic. We go, okay. We do the same thing here. We say, we actually want a slot, not a template. So we say slot, name equal label. If I did do that, then I guess this needs to be template. Hold on. If I do this, this template should now appear in this slot. My brain's kind of mushing out here. And also still have this error about failing to resolve the component on line 27, which doesn't make sense in context. It is probably something about this label. That makes sense because I made a spelling error again. And now I'm probably getting a more helpful error. Good. Okay, good. And now I'm seeing this hello here. But if I get rid of it here, I shouldn't. But if I have it, I should. But what I really want is template slots, template label. And then pass in the slot, like label slot I'm getting. So then I end up getting something like this. Now this is being passed in all the way through. And that might not, maybe I need to go over that again, just because of all the issues that we had while we were implementing it. So this is us using the API, and I'm saying, hey, all of this I want in here. So I can say this and replace that here and just get rid of that label stuff. And now I might be able to, just for demonstration purposes, you know, I can say EM, you know, I can be like, okay, yo, like, and here we can see that's italicized as a result. We could put other HTML in here, links and so forth. So now to this Fab checkbox, we're passing in a label slot, which is now being accepted by our Fab checkbox, but it also needs to then pass it in. So this is where the slot would be displayed, but it's passing it in as well. So same way we're doing template slot here, or template label here, we're doing template label here. And then it gets passed into Fab field. And Fab field either displays it here or here. And that works. So now I have this. I will need to also add it to my Fab input because that should be just the same. And I don't have to do much here, really. I just have to have this in here. And that's it. Although it should not have disappeared, which means here I have to say, oh, only do this if the slots are available. So I wonder if I would be able to do, so it happens to work here, but we found a bug, which is even here, I need to have an if statement to say, okay, if I have a slot, then I want to pass this in as a template. So can I do old school slots here? I wonder. Then I don't have to define use slots and everything up there, because I'm not using the slot programmatically. I'm only using it in the template. So I saved this, and this still works. So let me yank this and paste it here. And if I save this, I expect my location label to return, or my first name label to return, and they do. So this is exactly what I want, and I can do this because view in the template gives you access to props. I believe I could, do something like props, for example, or slots. So the options API special variables still work in the template, which means I don't have to define it up here, which I think means I don't have to define it in Fab field either. So because the only reason I'm using slots is in the template. So I should be able to do something like this and that. And now I can get rid of slots from here and from here. And everything is nice and working. And I can test this out by passing in a custom label to my Fab input usage somewhere. And so I guess I could just use the same one here for this field. Fab input, and then get rid of that. And now this label is up here, just like we would have wanted. Fantastic. I kind of want the labels to be bold by default, but that's okay. That's great. This is pretty cool. So I just need to know that for every wrapper I create that uses Fab field, I need to, if I want this label functionality to work, I need to pass in the template and slots for labels. Okay, I'm super happy with this. Okay. And maybe after this, we can get into, so I've created a Fab label, super simple. All it's doing right now is just abstracting this away. Components. In my app, I have a usage example of passing in the template slot or the label slot. Checkbox now has that additional slot. That's all the code I need to change on the checkbox. And we've done something similar on the input. And then Fab field, it's the slot addition here. Well, I kind of want to now, refactor this, but I'm not going to because I want to focus on some other things. All right. So we got checkboxes. Can we do selects? Let's do selects. And let's see if I can get multi-select done. And maybe that's where we can wrap up for today. Or I might just go ahead and, create button variants as well. Have some fun with that. Okay, let's go into vvalidate. And I recall that in the example for field, they demonstrated how to do selects, which is here. And that means we can pass in an as prop. And the tag here will become a select, but then we have to pass in the options individually as the default slot. And then it works because your select needs options. But for us, I think from an API perspective, I want to be able to do something like this. So let me go into app.view and then essentially build out this select as I might want it. So I want to do something like Fab select. Name is color. And I want to do options equals. So I want to actually be able to do a few things. I want to be able to pass it something like this. Why is this? Okay, there you go. Red or things just to show the thing, and then this can be green stuff. And I want the options to automatically be generated from this. I also want something like this, where I want to be able to say something like orange, green, red. Although this is what I want. I might not implement it. I definitely want this because typically my options will come in this kind of a format. And I will want this to be the label, and I'll want this to be the value that gets stored. Okay. And here, perhaps, if it's just an array, the label and the value can be the same thing. I could also do that start Kate's business as well, but I think this is fine. I might be able to do both. Let's see. All right, so now that I have this out here, this should start giving me errors, right? Fab select component doesn't exist, so let's go ahead and create it. I'm going to use Fab Checkbox as my starting point. And then I know that I have to say select for this to, it says Fab select, fail to resolve component still. My mouse is petering out for some reason. It's not following the, okay, there you go. I think I got it back. Okay. Okay. All right. So what is this? Fail to resolve. FU 27. This is the last error that we had. So let's just take a look. It's probably some misspelling or whatever. View, or do I need to do a restart for that component to register? No. Okay. I just quickly wanted to, So I'm doing a Fab select here. I'm closing it automatically. Same thing here. And all I'm doing is passing it options. So I'm not seeing anything fishy here. Fab select, and I do have a component named Fab select, and it is here. So like, what's the deal? That is frustrating. Just want to make sure everything is saved. It is not a custom element. So right now I don't want to mess with that too much, so I might do something like import. Actually, one thing. Hold on. I just wanted to see if this was proper, and it seems like it is. Like, I don't see any anything off the base here. I am noticing something, which is that I'm on 5040 here, and this says 5041. So do I have two servers running? 5041, 5040. I do. Why do I have a 5040 running? Let me just kill it. Yeah, Ah, that's fine. Let me just kill 7, 2. And now the server should not run. That is weird. I might have had it running in a different window or something. So now I'm seeing my selects as checkboxes because I haven't styled them. Okay, that was weird, but I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. So back to where we were, I have my fab selects, very much like my fab checkboxes, and I'm passing them options that I want to be able to see. So property select was accessed. Okay, so I've done a few things incorrectly here. So let me go into fab select. I think my as should not be, yeah, because it's not a variable. And now I'm getting a drop down here with nothing in it. I don't want to do a label after. I want this to be a regular select. Help name, all of that is good. Input wrapper classes. I don't need this anymore because I don't have a so everything is, it should just appear very much like this. So let me style it like that from fab input. And maybe I can just copy the classes here because I want them effectively to be the same. And maybe I can do a with full as well. So I'm still getting some errors here, and I'll just undefined props, I think. So in my fab select, I no longer want a type because that's maybe what happened here, which is like HTML select element does not have a type. And then, wow, so many issues. Failed setting type, which means that I am still passing type in my fab field probably, which I shouldn't do. Oh no, that lives here. So why am I still getting that issue? Because I haven't saved. That will do it. Kids, always save your files, and now it's just prop options, which is being passed in automatically to my select because I haven't extracted that here, which I should do here. So options is going to be a record of string or a string array. And now I expect these errors to have gone because I've defined that. And I think I want a width full here. So it takes the full width of whatever element it's in so that the caller can control the width. And so I probably want to do something similar here for my input classes. And again, maybe some of these classes, yes. Oops, not here. In my fab input. And yes, maybe some of these classes I can extract as well. But again, not the focus of what I want to do. And so I should see the width full coming on there. Fantastic. Okay, so now that's looking like a select. And I want the options to show up. And let me manually put an option in here. So I'm not getting an option hello in here, but I'm getting a hello here. Because why? Is it not being interpreted as an option? Do I have to do template? I don't think I have to do like template default. But let me do that anyway. What am I doing? Okay, that shouldn't be closed there. Ah, okay, yeah, that's silly. Because I need to be able to pass this in. I think it's just options need to be there. So now it shows up as an option here because I didn't, this was still like a auto closing tag. So my options need to be here. Okay, fantastic. That makes sense because I had passed this in here and then whatever's in here, that field is handling it. And I'll have to dynamically get these options to be in here based on what's here. Let me just look at how these tags are exactly formulated. Nothing special, just the value field. I wonder if there's anything else in options that I need to be aware of. Okay, you know, so there's stuff like multiple that could be passed in as props, autofocus and stuff like that. For now, I'm not gonna get into all these props, so we'll keep it fairly basic. And then later on, definitely we could enhance this so it's much more encompassing of all the options that are available. But for now, this is good. And maybe I can begin to see what this might look like. Because I have two colors. Color is undefined. And I don't, that's not what I had expected. I don't expect color to be undefined here. I expect to see some value, especially since I selected a value. So let me try and go figure out what's happening here. I don't think it's because a value isn't here, because if a value isn't present, I believe the value becomes the value automatically becomes what it is. Like it just becomes this. So name field, select. As process support for native. While it picks up the multiple values correctly, it doesn't set the initial values in the UI state. Okay, so this is just describing some of the problems it has for pre-selecting values. And that probably won't be too big of a problem for us because we're going to auto-generate these. Okay, so you could do things like disabled and stuff, and maybe later on we can have a way of enhancing this. Okay. All right, let me just get my thoughts together and see how I want to tackle this. Okay. So first I have an issue where I expect, like this is the code here, so I expect this to be functional. And if it's not, it means I need to adjust something somewhere. ID, field, blur, classes, adders. So just scanning the code here to see if everything looks good. Looks fine to me. I want to maybe get rid of the duplicate. So app view, maybe one of them can be named color and the other one can be named colors. Just so there isn't a duplicate. So now I'm seeing color and colors. Submit. This is going to bug me forever. So let me just change that so it's not required. Like I've tested the error. I know it works. And I'm seeing color and colors. And if I select one of them and submit, no value. No value. Why is that? I don't think it's the up object. So for example, if I check this and I submit, I expect it to be true. If I remove this from, like, first name is not part of my check and it shows up here. So all of that is working. My suspicion, one of my suspicions was that maybe I need to define it in my schema. I don't have to define it in the schema. So name is color. I mean, I've done this here because I've copy pasted. This used to be an array. So this doesn't need to be a bound string. It could just be this, for example, although that's not why this is not working. The only reason I could think of it not working, what if I didn't pass in these adders? Maybe there's something about something being bound somewhere that isn't working. Nope, that is not it. I don't really need the defaults here. I'm just trying to remove everything that, I mean, that should not make a difference. But I'm trying to just eliminate everything right now. I got a field as select. I've given it a name. I'm passing name and up here. It's got this label slot. Name, label, help, options, adders, which aren't being used because I just removed it, although that's not making a difference. Let me bring that back. Okay, that's annoying. Can I just have an empty option here? As a placeholder. I guess there should be a default sort of placeholder here as well for the empty value, although it shouldn't be selected. Weird. It is registering this. It's just not registering. Oh, okay. Maybe I do need to pass in value, even though that was, not anywhere, but, and that's it. Wow. That's frustrating that I didn't think of that sooner, because I just followed the example here and I was like, yeah, well, I know that regular selects work like that, and I expected these to work the same way. That's fine. I'm not going to dwell on that too much. Now that I know, I know. Okay, so I can now think about generating these dynamically. I forget select HTML placeholder, whether selects, like, select your option business, and if there's a proper way in HTML of doing this. Okay. Hidden. I mean, although this isn't sort of very critical um, to what we need to do, I am super curious. That's it. Release disabled label selected, and this. So maybe if there's a placeholder, we can just add it to the top with an empty value. That's fine. Which means I can put in placeholder here. It's not exactly like a proper placeholder per se, but it's for our purposes. Selects have placeholders. And I can say something like placeholder, please select a color. And I'm using American spelling, do excuse me. So now here in my color, I would expect to have a placeholder that would say, please select your color. And I wonder if select tag HTML. Let's just see quickly whether, did I miss something here? Autofocus disabled for multiple. No. Okay. I was like, maybe I missed something there. That there was really a placeholder and I just missed it. Okay, so we can get out of here and just make this work. So let's do the object case first, where I'll have the options object, which I have passed it in as an object, so I can just assume that it is. And then v4 here. And this can be I'm just thinking out loud here. I can make it maybe key value, so object.entries, options, and this could be key and value. In this case, value and label. And then this can be value. And then here I have the label. And I can get rid of this. And it doesn't like options in the entries because it's saying, hey, it's gotta be an object. What are you doing? So let me just make sure that that's the complaint by removing this. And that seems not to be the case. What is it? So options shouldn't be optional. That makes sense if that indeed is the error, and it seems like it is. If I bring in string array, will it give me an issue? It hasn't, so maybe it was just complaining about it being So now I'm getting my options as I would expect. So if I select red things here and I submit, I would have expected color to have red things, but it does not. Let me just take a look at the HTML this is generated to see if everything is legit. It doesn't have the value because I never put it in here. Silly me. And now if I come back here and do this, I expect red things to have appeared here as red, green, great, and orange. Fantastic. And this works out of the box as well, just as I would have wanted it, but the values are this because I've used object dot entries here. So the array is then split into key value, and the key being the index of the element in the array. Not what I want. So I might be able to do something like this. I might say, hey, let's make this a computed property of options value. And then just have a const options value here, which is computed. And for now, I'll just return options. I can't do that because I need to now define const props equals this and this to be props dot. And now everything here should work as regular. And this should return a number. And here I can check, hey, if props, what am I doing? Props dot options is an array, then do this, do something else. Otherwise, just return my object. And if it is, then really I want to just reduce it to an object where the key and the value are the same thing. So I might be able to say return props.options.reduce. This is my accumulator, and this is going to be just value. And here I can say return my accumulator here and value, because I want the key and the value to be the same. And now I need to pass in something here. And now that's not what I want. Why would it just be the first one that's split that way? Green works. And that's probably because I'm doing object.entries and the reduce has more than I had thought it would have. Sorry, it's funny. I didn't save, that's why. That was interesting. All right, so now I'm getting orange for orange, red for red. That's kind of how I want it to work. If I pass you an array, it's just what it is. Although I'm seeing like, okay, what if I did want to make the first one disabled or different ones disabled, and then I might have to pass in an array of objects instead of an array of strings and have that work. And, that's for a different day. The last thing I want to do is add a placeholder. And I can get rid of all of that. And the placeholder does not have a value. And this can just say, okay, look, if I actually have a placeholder, then show it. Which I would have expected to see here. So should it be just selected by default? Probably not what I want. I don't want it to be selected by default. But even that is not making this show here. So let's see. I know that this was telling us how to do it, which is to extract the value and then check if that is what we want, although they use disabled here. So let me see if I can do that and get away with it. But then otherwise, I probably should do something like selected being based on, hey, value being there, and then value including that value. Although even this wouldn't work because this is intended for multi-selected, not single one, which means value itself can be either an array or a literal string. It doesn't seem to like that. Like I just want it to appear by default. And I wonder why selected isn't good enough for it to just appear. So it seems like selected doesn't show up here. And maybe I need to do selected equals selected. Nope, it's not selecting. And it might be the case because it's trying to do something else. So we'll say and I'll just say selected equals false for these just to see. And now I'm seeing selected equals falses, but I'm not seeing selected equals true, maybe because it's disabled. So I won't disable it. I'm refreshing here, and I really what I want to see is please select the color being the default value. And for some reason, it doesn't want to. Probably because it doesn't have a value. And now it works. So I don't, I don't know why this way. Okay. But it works, so I don't have to do this hack of a business. And now if I refresh, this should work, and that works fine, and this should work as I would expect. Fantastic. Fabulous, one might say. All right, so now I have a select. I think this whole thing is a new file. So I can say, okay, well, this is good as it is. And here I just have two instances of select, one with an array, one with options. I didn't know if I was going to implement the array version, but here we are. So adding fab select component, and now we're really building up a select library. Let me see if I can now end up adding multi-select from view form. They also have a view slider and a view toggle. I'm curious to see what these look like. Yeah, I like it. Big fan. On label, off label. That's nice. Oh, this is fantastic. So now we can create like a fab toggle, fab multi-select. Could do this all could do this all day. True value, false value. Cool. So cool. Okay. And then what's this one? This is a slider. Great. I mean, this is amazing. We're gonna get all these components. And everything hopefully will, just work. Can define it this way, and I'm sure there's like all these like, okay, range. Oh, that's interesting. That's what they started off the value at. But if you pass it an array, Okay, the label can be displayed in a very special way. You could have 3 values. How does that work? Because you can have multiple values. It can be vertical. Oh boy. Okay, this is part of why I love, I don't know, web development. Like this, it's just, it's never ending. It's it's never ending. Okay, let's do focus. Let's do multiple select first. My heart kind of wants to do toggle first because I feel like it'll be the simplest one. Because just like checkbox. Let's do that. Let's do this. Let's, follow my heart. Okay, and what I can do is checkbox and copy this into a toggle. Fab toggle, and then I can, let's use it in my app view. So I have a checkbox here, but I'll replace this with toggle, and I won't mess about with the label. So this can just be, light. Is the light on or is it off? I don't know if this will do anything quite yet because the toggle fields might be different. Okay, and I won't pass this in, which means I could have just made this a self-closing one. But for now, okay, this and this works. Light is true. So all that is good. So now as I modify this, this should just appear as a toggle. Okay. 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 So I should be able to do something like, so I know here in my fab field, I want to pass in this. And here I still want to use field because this is what lets vValidate know to include that value in the form submission. Which means I'll have to do something like was described here, which is grab certain aspects of the field through here and then pass them into the vModel here. And I will search for vSlot here to see if there's any other descriptions of what to do with it. So rendering complex fields. And if we were doing that, it seems like what we could do is vSlot field itself and then pass in an input. And this input then becomes the main thing, and vbind this to field, so all the magic of the value and everything comes in through here. So we want to do something like this. But I don't know if we could just vbind. And I don't even know if vbinding makes sense. But let's see. Okay. When using vSlot on the field component, you no longer have to provide an as prop. And then it will become a learnedless component. Just trying to look at other examples of vSlot because there's like a whole bunch of explanations here, which I might need to know. Don't do this. But do this. What are you doing? Okay, they're saying don't do the V model. Don't directly put V model on here. Put field on here, which might conflict with the library that we're using. But let's see. Okay, you know what? That's enough reading. Let me just play with it and let's see how it works out. So here I will say field, and then I will want to v-slot my way here and grab the field. And then here I'll want to grab that toggle and use toggle in here and v-bind and not v-model yet. Let's see if this works. My hope is that maybe field is passing in things like name and label and not label, but name and other values. I could just take a look, and it's passing in name, it's passing in value, it's passing in check, on change, on input, and on blur, right? So not everything might apply to the toggle, but value does. But I don't know if value will be maintained as a V model into here. I think it will because it works with an input and so on. So let's see. And if this worked out of the box, I would be surprised. And it doesn't. So what if I did do V model, for example, and it was just some value? Property value was accessed during render, but is not defined on instance. Yeah. So what if I just did constant value equals ref false to start, and let's bring in ref here. It doesn't seem like this is displaying in the way that I would have wanted. So let's see what is up. Seems like I need to import the styles and the themes, and that might be why. So let's pull that in. And it seems like that was why, and now we have it working. In this case, it seems like you would want light to be on this side and the toggle to be on this side here. But let's see if the values are, well, the value won't be passed in, right? Because I didn't bind it because I thought maybe the binding was the issue. So let me bind this now to field. Let's get rid of value here. I don't need this ref anymore. And now let's see if it just magically works. So if I say light, it won't change. So I might need to v-model value. Even though it said don't do it, but I might have to do it. Okay. I guess I can't do it. Right? They weren't kidding. Although v model isn't on value, it's on name. So let me do that. That makes more sense. So name, I can get rid of value here. And now that doesn't work. Invalid prop type check. Name is a string. It's not a ref. But value is a ref. But I can't v model value. Okay. slot, you need to place it on the field component tag itself. Right, so all this thing is the name goes here. Don't do this. Viewline field. And it's saying, hey, like, we'll take care of it. Yeah, it literally says we'll take care of the rest. But it seems like that's not the case for this toggle field. Up here, though, it did say, hey, not everything might make sense. Right? So use vslot to, and they haven't even pulled in vslot as a field. Right? They're saying, hey, field doesn't make sense here. Okay. This is an automatically if using the as prop. Okay. Okay, got it. All right. So we're going to have to do this through a proxy. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that I should need to have an input here, and I will vbind field to it. I will also have a vmodel of value, and we will vmodel here, and this will be value. Even though it says, hey, don't worry about it, it'll get taken care of. I think I need to do this. And then up here have const value ref. Can I just leave it empty? We'll see. And yeah, because I'm saying vmodel value here, that will be bound to the field stuff, I think. And then that will get represented in this vmodel here, I think. And then because we have it as an input, I want to make this type equals hidden. So it's a hidden input, right? That's the magic that's happening here, ideally, which is it's the hidden input. So it's included in the form because toggle doesn't know about the form. That's the gap that I didn't have. So now I should be able to do this. Great. And if I submit, I expect to see true, which it isn't, but we can start to debug why. So I could probably do something like this, maybe. Pre-field, let's just output the value in field so we can see what's happening here. Checked. Okay. And then this does nothing. But we should also be able to add, for example, value here, which is true and false. But I guess on our field, yeah, this should not be checkbox, right? That's why it's using checked. And so now it's using value and not checked because that type is not checkbox. And now when I do this, okay, that doesn't really work. I would have expected the value is true by default. So whenever I submit, it's just gonna be true. Even if it's off, it's just gonna be true. I think we're getting closer, right? So this vmodel binding on the value doesn't seem to be taking effect. But that's what I want. I want this value to be attached to this field. And the values is sort of emerging from here. I wonder if I can bind the V model here, even though I don't think I read it in the docs, but which is saying, hey, like this is the value here, so don't, because it should magically just come through with field, and that is working. So the V model doesn't go in here as they said in the docs. So they weren't lying. But I can put the V model. Okay, that's what I missed. Is the V model is here. Okay. Although they use name. Which is a bit weird. Okay, that's all good. That's all great. And so now I can get rid of my debuggers here. And now have light, submit, and whoops, let me just submit here, see true come in, and now I should see false or undefined come in. It's false. Okay, amazing. So that's the trick we'll need to use, which is we'll use a hidden input in the case that we're integrating a separate component. And that's how the rest of our form will know that it's that is good to go. All right. The only thing that's not great is this here. Like I'd want the label to be on the side, I suppose. And so I don't know whether I want like people to manage their own labels, because now we did create Go. We did create Fab label. Okay, that's bugging me. I should be able to click on the label and have that work, because that's how labels work. I might do have label facility here. On off labels. Label by the area labeled by attribute. Let me just bring this in a bit larger. Those are just classes. Label checked. Accordingly. Labeled by this, described by that. I read by the screen readers. If you priority label by property, that will instead be read instead of labels. I mean, we should do this anyway, right? Because that should be the ID, and the ID here is just the name. Which again, I think we'll have to change at some point, because if you have two things of the same, like if I have two different forms with the same fields, those IDs would collide. That doesn't work. So really that was just internal. So in this case, what we might have to do is have like an on click on the label, which triggers an on click on this. Or just changes the value, right? Because everything is V modeled in. So if we had an on click that changed value, then that should work. So I should be able to do something like this. Label click, let's just say, is equal to value equals not value. And then I need label click to work, so fab field will on these labels will have an click. Which I think we could pull in through the adders of on label click. So adders on label click. And do the same thing on the after one. I think this should be good enough. No, that is not good enough. So we'll just do this here, just again, just for debugging purposes. Let's do adders to see if this is even a thing. Yeah. It isn't. It isn't. I don't know why I thought it would be. View to adders. I thought I would be able to like do this. So I have my props defined here, which like on click label is not. It's not one of them. And I'm in my fab field. And so if I have adders, I would have thought some of these would fall through. Maybe they don't because I did a false on inherit adders. I do have. Where else do I have adders? Nowhere in here anymore. Okay. Okay. Can I prop it on label click? It's going to be a function void. And then can I just use that here? Let me just do something else here. Let me just go console.log hello and console.log hello there. Just see if the click at all is, is working. And click. Maybe this property is not binding into the label. That's probably it. So that makes sense. Because it is a fab label. And here we said don't inherit, and we actually do want to inherit. And props isn't being used, so I can get rid of that. Okay. So now when I click undefined reading of log, okay, no problem. So that was, I think, it. And I guess there's no console log in this space. So can I do on label click here? And let me get rid of this mess. And let's click here. And now that works. Fantastic. That's pretty cool. HTML, like that's what it's supposed to do. The only thing I don't like is the that labels are on this side. I don't know that I want to do this now. Because like I come into this problem, right? Where I've got my input wrapper classes. I've got this, label that's outside, which is the before label. And then I have this, which is the after label, but which is inside input wrapper classes, so I could flex it. But this won't be flexible. And I'm wondering how I would do that, because like I don't, the whole container can't be flexed because I don't want the rest of these to behave in that way. And so do I need like a third label inside here for these cases? I don't love that either. What I could do actually is make it an after label and flex reverse. And I think that would do it. So let's go back into Fab toggle. And let's see. We're doing that anyway, like label is after. So I should be able to do flex reverse. And for all intents and purposes. Okay, so it's aligned this way, fine. It no longer cares about my spacing. It doesn't care about any of that. Is this even a thing? No, it's not. Justify. Where's my autocomplete? Ah, because this isn't, okay. My autocomplete isn't there because that is not a class field. What if I did this? No, okay. That's fine. Let's just read the flex direction. We've reversed it. But I don't know why it wouldn't honor the space X 2. That does seem odd. It's always something that doesn't, that doesn't work. So I do have this. This is what the toggle is. It's this container here. I have my hidden input, which is, it's not even there. It shouldn't cause a problem. The spacing is reversed here, right? So there it is. That's weird. Which means if I go here, that's fine. So what I'll just do here is I'll justify between. And the space X might not even matter. It's like, okay, light. So just remove this because that's what was causing this. And now I get something like this. And if I did want this to be closer, I might do some other things, but that's okay. I think this is fine because for most toggles, like this is how you would see it. You'd see the label here and then you would be like on, off or whatever. So I'm actually happy with this. Because ultimately this is not how this won't be the context of the toggles that we do. Cool. All right. So this is our Fab toggle. We just added the toggle class here. Toggle example. Fab field. And what we did here was just the on click. Actually, yeah, so it's undefined or it's this. That's good. And then fab label, we remove the false on inherit adders because we actually do want things to flow through. And then, okay, adding fab toggle. All right. This is going pretty long, but I want to get that multi-select in there, and I want to get the variance in there as well. I am mildly determined. Let's just do, fine, maybe let's just do multi-select. Like, this is good. Like, I think we've accomplished quite a bit here. Sliders, we'll eventually get these too. Cool. This is pretty cool. I'm fairly thrilled by how this is going. Hopefully this will be more straightforward, but you know, nothing is guaranteed. So multi-select, and the reason I copied toggle is because this hidden thing will work in a very similar fashion. So they use options. So we might have to copy or use some of that work we did in the select. Because I want the API from the outside to be the same. So let's get that in there first. And then the usage, let's do this. And now let's figure out that options business through Fab Select. And for now, I will copy paste because, again, I don't want to spend time refactoring. If this whole thing isn't going to work, then like I don't want to refactor up front and then just have the thing not work. Which means I think later on we might have a session for refactoring because we're passing all of these in over and over. We're doing all of this business over and over, and it seems like there should be an easier way to do this. And if it isn't, that's fine. But if there is, we should use it. Okay. And then I want to grab options. Okay, so I have options. I have my options value here that I should be using for my options down here. Right? I think that should be good enough. And I probably need to copy these themes. Okay, app.view. Let's see if I can just convert a fab select into a fab multi-select. It shouldn't be that easy, right? Like it shouldn't work out of the box. Except it kind of does. Look at that. Obviously, we'll need to work on this a little bit, but essentially this component itself is pretty cool out of the box. Most likely I just need to place it in some sort of a div. Oh, because I copied, okay, that's fine. We don't want label after, we don't want these wrapper classes. And now that's good. I mean, I do want the outline of this and this to look the same. So whatever it is, I mean, I guess in this case, I haven't really styled the text fields. Let's see if it actually does work. So for example, if I did green here, and I submitted, is color is going to be green? It is. If I change it, is it going to be red? And it is. So it was that easy. Like once we figured out the toggle thing and the hidden input being the way to pass the value to the form. This is super simplified. We actually don't want to do this anymore. Sorry. Although when I click on this, it should like auto select this and it should auto open maybe. Is that what happens here? No. So it's just an outline that happens. So like that should happen, although I'm not gonna get into that right now. That is functional, but I think, I mean, this is just acting as a single select. So what we really want is for this to act like a proper multi-select. So this is just super basic. And let's take a look at some of the options that we have. So mode is single, multiple, and tags. So I do want to have a mode. And do we need to pass it in? No, it should be optional. Single by default. Multiple or tags. Let's see. And then here, I want the mode to be mode or single, which means that if I in app view in multi-select, I should be able to pass in mode equals multiple, for example. And that should all translate. And so I should be able to select 1 and 2 and submit. And now colors is an array. Amazing. It does this thing here, which I don't like, which the options disappear as you're selecting them. And I don't want that to happen. And there is an option for that, I believe. Okay, that's cool. They also take an array or an object. But how would an array work? I don't know. You can have groups. And this is how you do it. Group label, group options. Placeholder, cool. Okay, so we do have that. So maybe I should make both of them multi-selects because now like here I'm passing in an array and here I have. So let me make this a multi-select as well. So now this will test the placeholder, this will test this functionality, and then let me make this multiple. And take a look here. And so here, if I select orange and red things and submit, I expect to see orange and red, and not orange and red things, for example. I do want to see those values in the dropdown still, so let's try and find the input, search start, classes, advanced props, can deselect, can clear, hide selected. Whether selected options should be excluded from multiple or tags. I think they should be excluded from tags because the tag is going to be visible. So in this case, I guess I can make this tag. And so this experience to me makes, okay, that's unfortunate. So this experience to me makes sense where like these, because they're here, they disappear from here. Um, we'll have to figure out the styling later. But okay, if these were tags and I submit, I should see an array here. Orange and green, great. But I don't want that to happen when it's multiple. So let's definitely fix that. So in here, height selected is equal to, height select is only true if mode is tags, right? Otherwise, don't do it. So if I select this, okay, now these options are selected. They show up as the green color. Although we'll probably want this to be primary or something later at some point. So, you know, certain things for me to work on. Okay, that looks pretty nice. That's pretty cool. Some styling issues with tags to, oh no, okay, I just had to refresh. It seems like tags, the styling is cool. It's only because of the HMR, the hot module reloading, that did not work. Okay, that's less work for me to do. Amazing. All right. Is there anything else here that I care about? Searching, like one thing is I should have some searching functionality. I should be able to type something into the field and have that option show up. Searchable. You know, I actually want these to be searchable by default. So I'm just gonna say true, and maybe we'll add a way to disable this later. So the way this works now is I can type in, like if I say things, I should be able to type it in and select it. And same thing here, I should be able to go green. And now that's searchable. That's so much cooler. That's fantastic. Okay, so we have this really cool multi-select functionality. And we didn't really even have to like make the normal select multi-select here because I'm actually happy with this. Like if I want a multi-select, I'm going to use this. If I want a regular select, I'm going to use Fab select. Although Fab multi-select can also be a regular select if we pass in mode single or by default as it is. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Let me just bring this back over here so I get more of my code window. All right. I mean, sure, yeah, there's quite a bit of duplication right now, but again, not too worried about that. Okay, this is done. Do I want to add button variants? Shouldn't be too bad. Let's just take a quick shot. If it's taking too long, I'm gonna wrap up. So in my Fab button here, I have button sizes. Let me see how other libraries, the UI library variants, buttons. Material design. Okay. Variations. I want to see what the code for this would look like. Just so I have a fairly standard API. Material design view library. Seems like Beautify is. I mean, I could, I could have just used Beautify and called it a day, But then we wouldn't learn all this stuff, right? Like, okay, if I wanted, see, like this, I don't understand this. I don't understand why libraries will do this, where they'll make it an attribute that's Boolean, even though you can't be small and large at the same time. Like, what's the logic behind it? Like, why is that not a proper attribute with multiple options? Sorry, it really is frustrating. Like, what are you trying to like? Is this cool? Is that what it is? Okay, that's cool. But is that what it's supposed to be? Is it like, you know? Ugh. Okay, disabled makes sense. That's Boolean. Loading is Boolean. Block is Boolean. But geez, this is not. Primary, secondary, accent. So these are colors, right? So I have two things, which is one might be the colors of the button, and the variation is the display. So theoretically, I should be able to have a outline variant with, an error color, for example, or a primary color or a secondary color. Okay, so let's do that. Colors. And yeah, it's all American spelling. I'm going to search for primary. I'm going to have to pull those out in the text. So default is primary, I suppose, and then I can have secondary. Secondary, and let me do error as well. And all this really will be is will be this. Okay, and because this is color as well, we'll pull these out and get them in here. And I'll just make all these the same for now, and we'll I guess like all I need to do is do that, I suppose. And here change this to error and this. I guess I'm realizing that doesn't need to come over. And so I can get rid of that from here and here. And then the text, I copied it over because it might need to be different in different situations. And now I'm realizing that the colors will also depend on the variation, because an outline variant, the border will be primary 700, not the background. So this will probably need to be something like something like I wonder if they have an outline here. So they do have outline. What does the code for this look like? Yeah, outlined. Okay. I just, really what I want is an outline and a non-outline button. So in this case, I'm going to do this. Call it default. And then do the same thing here. So there's a default variant. And then we'll have Very similarly to this, we'll have an outline variant. Okay, and I'm just gonna leave this right now, and then we'll figure it out. Just as I'm gonna have to pass it a color and a variant, and this will be no primary, secondary error. We might have a success one as well if we ever add that color, which I'm thinking that I will. Variant can be default and outline. And link, I won't design link right now, but we'll get to that later. I might call it plain. It's not really link. And it doesn't have a border, it doesn't have a background. So it just appears as text, but it is a button for all intents and purposes. And here I want to say, hey, I want to pick a color. And the color should be picked as a result of the the color. Although I should props.color. Okay, fine. Props.color or primary by default, and this should be props dot variant, and this should be default by default. There might be a better name, but for another day. It doesn't like these things because this is fake, so that's fine. We'll just make it this a record string, and then I should be able to push this in here. And otherwise I've removed the color from here, so I suspect that I could probably change some of these, like so this can be color secondary, and it does change. That is a secondary color, although the hover is not correct, so let's fix that. And this can be variant equals outline, and this won't change because I haven't really styled the variants. Okay, that's the one I missed. What am I doing? Okay. I'm holding on to control for a bit too long. Okay. So now all of them have a hover, and we'll have to figure that out. In this case, it is primary, and so I have to change it now. Secondary error. Primary, 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 secondary, and error. And so now when I hover, it follows the rules. And now let's design this outline button. We'll make the rest. So I guess this is border, and I have to give it a border as well. Okay, good. And instead of text gray, this could maybe be text gray 800 instead. We might even, I think it should be primary. Primary, okay, there we go. That's much better. It should just be the color of the thing. The ring is primary, that's fine. And the hover, well, I don't want BG to change. Maybe the border can change, not a big deal. nobody will see that. So maybe the BG should change, but it's gonna be like 50. So super slight. Kind of, hey, you're hovering over me. Okay, I like that. Okay, ultimately I'll just copy this here. And bring this out here. A second. What I can probably just do is :s / primary / secondary G. And then here do something similar, but error. It doesn't like it because, because I don't know how to terminate strings. Okay, and I should be able to test it out now. So I should be able to say this variant, I want the color to be error. Yep, good. That's red, and this is red. This is like if this should be a delete button, right? Like, hey, danger, Will Robinson, danger. So have error outline, have error primary, outline secondary. Yeah. Okay, all that is great. Cool. Didn't take too long. Now I have outline. And really I think the plain option would just get rid of one or the other. Let me place this here to see how they appear side by side. Sorry, this is just something that's bugging me a little bit. I don't know if it's I guess what's bugging me is let's make this primary. So by default it is. I should just be able to get rid of that. Let's make this small enough so they appear side by side. It seems to me like this border is making this button larger than this one. And that's just visual. Like I can't tell for certain. I'm leaning in here. I'm leaning in right into my monitor to see if that's the case. So let me see if I can address that by what if I did add add the border here that's just the same. So and now these are equally sized. Which they should be, in my opinion, right? Like they should be the same size. What if I did transparent? Yeah, no, like visibly this button becomes smaller than the other, which I don't like. So I'm just going to do this and then I guess all of them end up happening. All of them end up happening having borders. Now the reason I didn't the reason I did not make this programmatic is again because Tailwind needs to see the full class in order to generate these classes. And so this is what we need to do as a result of it. I'm okay with that. Like it's not perfect, but it's fine. And ultimately, yeah, I do want these toggles to be like primary, secondary, and whatnot. But they'll just and these colors should also be like primary and secondary and whatnot. But we'll just live with these for now. Okay, I'm happy with these button variants. So we will commit. All right. Even though we didn't do link, I think that's fine. I'll probably end up adding it when I actually need it versus sort of planning ahead for it. Okay, so we have been building form components. We have selects, we have text areas. Oh, we don't have text areas, so I do need to add that. I won't do that now, but later we have we have checkboxes, selects, we have toggles, we'll add slider as well from view form. We've got, what else? Maybe refactor should be a thing here. Refactor components. Again, I'm not too concerned about this right now because maybe there should be duplication. But I'm not very sure about that right now. Like maybe this stuff should be duplicated. Server-side validation. Okay, so I'm actually looking forward to that. That way, without having yup defined in the front end, we should just be able to define some yup structure or validation in the back end. Have that returned by the server and populate errors into our form. Play with Storybook. Yeah, I kind of want to do this now. We've added multiple variants and colors and everything else, and we should be able to play around in some kind of a playground now. And we've added, toggles and this and that. So, yeah, we're, it's very close, which means maybe I want to do this first instead of Storybook, which is make the component library exportable. And that way I can begin to use it in some of my other projects. Cool. All right. See you next time.